I thought my wife and brother were just close, until I found their secret bank account and realized they weren't just hiding money. They were hiding an entire double life. My name is Mark Holloway, and I'm 32 years old. I live in Austin, Texas, where I work as a financial consultant. My life has always been fairly predictable: work, gym, occasional drinks with friends, and a steady marriage with my wife, Sophie, who's 30. We've been married for 5 years, and while we don't have kids, we've built a comfortable life together. My older brother, Jake, is 35 and lives just a few miles away from us. He's always been the charismatic one, the life of the party, the guy everyone wants to be around. Growing up, I looked up to him, even when our personalities clashed. He was outgoing and reckless, while I was the quiet, responsible one. Despite our differences, we were close, or at least, I thought we were. Jake and Sophie always got along well. Maybe a little too well, but I never thought much of it. Sophie had a way of making people feel comfortable, and Jake loved being the center of attention. It seemed natural that they'd form a friendship. But recently, I started noticing things. Little things. At first, it was just the way Sophie would light up when Jake was around, laughing at his jokes a little too hard, touching his arm absent-mindedly. Then it was the secretive texting, the way she'd get a notification, glance at it quickly, and tilt her phone away from me. One night, we were sitting on the couch, watching a movie, when her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, smiled slightly, and immediately turned the screen down on the coffee table. "Who's that?" I asked casually. She didn't even hesitate. "Just Claire," she said, referring to one of her friends from work. Something in my gut told me she was lying. But why would she lie about a simple text? Another time, I walked into the kitchen while she was on the phone. She must not have heard me come in because when she turned around and saw me, she jumped. "Who was that?" I asked. "No one," she said too quickly, shoving her phone into her pocket. I raised an eyebrow. "No one." She forced a smile. "Just a bank call. Some issue with my account." A bank call? That felt odd. But again, I let it go. I had no reason to suspect anything serious. That was until I found the bank receipt. The receipt that changed everything. It happened on a Sunday afternoon. I was doing laundry when I found a crumpled-up receipt in Sophie's jeans pocket. Normally, I wouldn't have given it a second thought, but something about it caught my eye. The receipt was from First National Bank, a place neither of us used. I unfolded the slip and saw 2 names listed under a joint account. Sophie Holloway, Jake Holloway. My heart stopped. A joint account? My mind raced. Why the hell would my wife and my brother have a shared bank account? I stood there for a long time, staring at the piece of paper as if it could explain itself. 1,000 thoughts flooded my mind, each worse than the last. Was this some kind of investment? A loan? A mistake? No. The only logical explanation was that they were financially tied together in a way I had never known. I took a deep breath, trying to stay rational. Maybe there was an innocent explanation. I needed to find out more before jumping to conclusions. Looking for clues. That evening, I decided to test the waters. I waited until Sophie was in the shower and grabbed her phone from the nightstand. I wasn't proud of it, but I had to know. Her phone was locked. Not unusual. But what caught my attention was that she had recently changed her passcode. She had never done that before. Red flag number 2. I went on my laptop and pulled up our bank statements. As I scanned through the transactions, I noticed something strange: money transfers. Every couple of weeks, a few $100s were being transferred out of our joint account into an account I didn't recognize. I copied down the account number and did a quick online search. It was linked to First National Bank, the same bank from the receipt. I sat back in my chair, my stomach twisting into knots. This was not a coincidence. Confrontation, or not yet. That night at dinner, I decided to casually bring up finances. I was thinking. I started, stabbing at my steak. Maybe we should start putting more money into savings. Sophie barely looked up from her plate. Just a plan for the future. I was checking our bank accounts earlier, and her fork clattered onto her plate. She froze. Just for a second. Then she reached for her glass of wine, took a sip, and forced a casual smile. "That's a great idea," she said lightly. "We should definitely start saving more." She was deflecting. I could tell. I wanted to push further, to ask her directly why she had a secret account with Jake, but I held back. I needed more proof. If she was lying, I wanted to know exactly what she was hiding before I confronted her. That night, As Sophie slept beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. I had so many questions and no answers. But one thing was clear. Something was very, very wrong. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, my mind replayed the same question. Why would my wife and my brother have a secret bank account together? I needed answers. And I needed them fast. The next morning, as Sophie left for work, I kissed her goodbye like nothing was wrong. But the moment the door closed behind her, I grabbed my phone and made a call. Hey, Ryan, I need a favor. Ryan was an old college friend of mine who worked at First National Bank. We hadn't talked in a while, but I knew he owed me one. I had helped him out when he was going through a messy divorce last year. Mark? Damn, man, long time no talk. What's up? I hesitated. Knowing what I was about to ask wasn't exactly legal. I need some info on a bank account. I found a receipt with my wife and brother's names on it. They have a joint account together. And I need to know what's going on. There was a brief pause before Ryan sighed. You know I could get fired for this, right? I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important, I said. Just a quick look. Anything unusual, transactions, balances, deposits. He groaned, but finally agreed. Give me a couple of hours. Now, all I could do was wait, following the money, trying to distract myself. I decided to search our home for anything else suspicious. I started in Sophie's closet, checking the pockets of her coats and jeans, but found nothing. Then I moved to her home office. She always kept her important papers in a drawer, and as I flipped through them, something caught my eye, a lease agreement. For a condo downtown. My hands tightened around the paper. We didn't own any property downtown. The lease was under Jake's name, but Sophie had signed as a secondary tenant. A cold shiver ran down my spine. Were they living together behind my back? I grabbed my phone and typed the address into Google Maps. It was an expensive high-rise complex, one I knew Sophie could never afford on her own. And then my phone buzzed. Ryan. I answered instantly. Tell me you have something. Ryan exhaled. Yeah, man. It's bad. The truth unfolds. First off, this account has been active for 3 years, Ryan said. They've been funneling money into it regularly. Transfers from both your wife's and your brother's personal accounts. The balance is pretty high, around $140,000. I nearly dropped the phone. What the hell? That's not all, he continued. A lot of withdrawals were made to a property management company. It looks like they've been paying rent on some place downtown. The condo. Jake and Sophie had been paying for a place together for years. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Do you see any strange purchases? Like hotel stays, vacations. Ryan hesitated. There are a lot of transactions at luxury hotels. Some charges from jewelry stores, fancy restaurants. But here's the kicker. There are also payments labeled as child support. My blood ran cold. Child support. I repeated. Yeah, regular monthly payments, around $2,500 each. Always sent to the same woman. You want the name? I already knew I did. Ryan gave it to me. And I quickly searched it on Facebook. The profile picture showed a young woman holding a toddler, a boy no older than 2 years old. He had Jake's blue eyes. And suddenly, it all made sense. Connecting the dots. Sophie and Jake had been secretly involved for years. They'd been hiding money together, keeping a separate apartment, and worst of all, Jake had a son with another woman. And Sophie knew about it. She had been helping him, maybe even covering for him. It felt like a knife had been plunged straight into my chest. I stared at the baby's picture on my screen, my stomach twisting. Jake had a child, yet he was sending money in secret instead of acknowledging his own son. And Sophie, my wife, the woman I trusted, had been handling the money. Why? A dangerous game. I had the proof now, but I couldn't just confront them blindly. If I wanted answers, I needed leverage. So, I decided to play dumb. That night, when Sophie came home, I greeted her like nothing was wrong. Hey, babe, how was your day? I asked, kissing her cheek. She smiled, but there was something off about it. Oh, busy. Just a lot of meetings. Meetings? Sure. I wanted to grab her shoulders and scream at her, but instead, I nodded. I said casually, I was thinking we should go downtown for dinner tomorrow night. Maybe check out that new steakhouse near the high-rise apartments. Her reaction was immediate. She stiffened. Oh, I actually have plans with Claire tomorrow, she said quickly. Liar. I thought. That's too bad. I replied, pretending to be disappointed. Maybe next time. She relaxed. And that told me everything I needed to know. She was hiding something big. The setup. The next day, instead of going to work, I drove downtown to the condo address. I parked across the street, watching the entrance like a hunter stalking his prey. At exactly 6:30 p.m., Sophie arrived. She wasn't meeting Claire. She was going into the condo. 15 minutes later, Jake arrived. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I wanted to storm in there and destroy everything, but I forced myself to stay calm. If I walked in now, they'd have excuses ready, lies rehearsed. I needed them to bury themselves first. So, I did something even better. I pulled out my phone, opened my camera, and started recording. I captured every moment. Sophie opening the door, Jake walking in behind her. The way she reached out and touched his arm. The final nail in the coffin. I now had undeniable proof. And soon, they were going to pay for it. I sat in my car, gripping my phone, watching the footage over and over again. My wife and my brother, together, laughing, comfortable, familiar. This wasn't just a secret meeting. It was a relationship. They had been hiding in plain sight. I had always considered myself a rational man. The kind of person who thinks before acting, who doesn't let emotions cloud judgment. But at that moment, as I sat outside their condo, my hands were shaking. Anger, betrayal, disgust. It was all boiling inside me. I could have walked in right then, kicked down the door, screamed in their faces. But what would that do? No. I needed a plan. I needed to make them pay. The final pieces of the puzzle. Instead of confronting them, I drove home, my mind racing. I knew what was happening, but I needed to hear it from them. I poured myself a whiskey and pulled up my laptop. I needed more proof. Since Ryan had already helped me track down their secret bank account, I decided to dig deeper. I logged into our home security camera app. Sophie didn't know. But I had installed a small camera in our living room 6 months ago, mainly for security reasons. I started scrubbing through the footage. Most of it was normal. Sophie working on her laptop, watching TV, making dinner. But then, I saw something that made my stomach turn. Jake. He had been inside my house when I wasn't home. There were multiple clips of him coming over while I was at work, sitting on my couch, drinking my beer, talking to Sophie like they owned the place. And then, one clip changed everything. The secret conversations. It was from 3 weeks ago. Sophie was sitting on the couch with a glass of wine. Jake was next to her, his arm draped casually over the back of the couch. I hate lying to him, Sophie sighed. Jake smirked. You've been lying to him for years, babe. What's one more lie? It's different now. He's been asking about money. What if he finds out about the account? Jake leaned closer. He won't. He's too trusting. I paused the video. I felt sick. This wasn't an affair that just happened. This was calculated. Planned. They had been manipulating me for years. And now, they were mocking me for not knowing. Setting the trap. I stared at my reflection in the window. I didn't even recognize myself. This wasn't just about cheating. This was deception on every level. And I wasn't going to let them get away with it. I picked up my phone and dialed Sophie's number. Hey, babe, she answered cheerfully. What's up? I forced myself to sound normal. Hey. I was thinking, let's do a dinner this weekend. Just you, me, and Jake. There was a long pause. Jake? She repeated carefully. Yeah, we haven't hung out in a while. And I miss spending time with both of you. I could almost hear the gears turning in her head. Was I onto them? But she couldn't refuse without raising suspicion. Sure, she finally said. That sounds great. Dinner for 3. I spent the next 2 days preparing everything. I hired a private investigator to pull all financial records, confirming what I already knew. Sophie and Jake had been funneling money for years. I got in touch with a lawyer. And then, I set up one last surprise. When the night of the dinner came, I made sure everything was perfect. A candlelit table, expensive wine, soft music, the perfect setup for destruction. Sophie arrived first, dressed up, smiling like nothing was wrong. Wow, you really went all out, she said, kissing my cheek. Oh, you have no idea, I murmured. Jake showed up a few minutes later. Confident, smug, arrogant. He clapped me on the shoulder. What's the occasion, little bro? I poured us all a drink. Actually, I wanted to talk about family. I watched as Sophie and Jake exchanged a quick glance. Busted. Dropping the bomb. I took a sip of my drink, then set the glass down slowly. You know, I began. I was going through some of our finances recently. Sophie, you remember that time you told me there was a bank issue? She froze. Yeah, I smiled. Well, funny thing, I did some digging, and I found something really interesting. Jake shifted uncomfortably. Mark, what is this about? I pulled out the bank receipt and slid it across the table. Both of their faces drained of color. What is this? Sophie asked, trying to keep her voice steady. You tell me, I said. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like my wife and my brother have been hiding a secret bank account together for 3 years. Silence. Complete, utter silence. Then, Sophie did something I didn't expect. She laughed. A short, nervous, panicked laugh. Mark, you're being paranoid. This is a misunderstanding. Jake nodded quickly. Yeah, man, you're overreacting. That's when I pulled out my second surprise. I took out my phone and hit play. The video from our home security camera. Jake and Sophie, sitting on my couch, talking about their lies. Sophie turned white. Jake's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Where did you get that? Sophie stammered. I leaned back in my chair. Does it matter? The final blow. Jake slammed his glass down. Okay, listen, maybe we made some mistakes, but... I cut him off. Shut the hell up, Jake. He blinked. You didn't just make mistakes. You lied. You stole from me. You thought I was too stupid to figure it out. Sophie reached for my hand. Mark, please, let's just talk about this. I pulled away. Oh, we will. With my lawyer. Her eyes widened. Jake's fists clenched. You wouldn't. I smirked. I already have. You're both screwed. I stood up, tossing a manila envelope onto the table. Inside were legal papers, financial proof, copies of their messages, a notice of divorce. Jake and Sophie just stared at it. Sophie's voice cracked. Mark, please. I didn't even look at her. Get out. And just like that, their perfect little scheme fell apart. Sophie sat there, frozen. Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't feel an ounce of sympathy. Jake, on the other hand, had turned red with anger. His jaw clenched, fists tightening like he wanted to hit something. Too bad, Jake. You're not the one in control anymore. Mark. Sophie tried again, her voice trembling. We can fix this. I laughed. Actually laughed. The absurdity of it was too much. Fix what, Sophie? I scoffed. The fact that you've been sneaking around with my own brother? The secret bank account? The condo I just found out about? The fact that you've been covering for him while he pays off some woman for his kid? She opened her mouth, then closed it again. She had no defense. How long? I asked, my voice eerily calm. She blinked. What? How long? I repeated. Have you and Jake been screwing each other behind my back? She swallowed hard. It's complicated. Not really. I turned to Jake. You want to explain? Or should I just assume you've always been a lying piece of shit? Jake scoffed, running a hand through his hair. It wasn't like that. Oh, really? I folded my arms. So tell me, what was it like? He glared at me, then let out a harsh breath. It just happened. At first, it was nothing. Just flirting. Then one night, after a family dinner, we were drunk. I held up a hand. Stop. I don't need the details. Sophie was crying now, silent tears rolling down her cheeks. Mark, I never wanted to hurt you. Funny, I said bitterly. Because you did a damn good job at it. The last goodbye, I reached for the manila envelope I had tossed on the table earlier. Here's what's going to happen. Jake scoffed. Oh, now you're making demands. I turned to him with an icy glare. You don't get a say in this, Jake. Not anymore. I pointed at Sophie. First, we're getting divorced. And don't even think about fighting it. I've already hired the best lawyer in town, and thanks to your little bank account, I can prove financial infidelity, which means I get everything. The house, my savings, the car. Sophie shook her head violently. Mark, please, don't do this. I ignored her. I turned to Jake. And you? You're done. Not just with me, but with this whole family. Mom and Dad are going to find out about everything. His face paled. You wouldn't. I smirked. Oh, I would. And I will. I leaned in closer. But you know what? I'm actually doing you a favor. Maybe if they know about your little secret child, they'll actually start forcing you to be a real father instead of just throwing money at the problem. Jake's eyes widened in shock. How do you? I cut him off. I know everything. His mouth snapped shut. He knew he was cornered. Sophie was sobbing uncontrollably now. Mark, I love you. Please, I made a mistake. I, I held up a hand. Don't. She hiccuped between sobs. You made your choices, Sophie. You chose him. You chose to lie, to steal from me, to make me feel like an idiot in my own marriage. I stood up, grabbing my jacket. Now you get to live with the consequences. I turned to Jake. And you? I hope she was worth losing your family over. Then I walked out, burning it all down. I didn't just leave the restaurant. I left them behind for good. By the time Sophie tried to call me, begging, pleading, I had already blocked her number. The next morning, I sent all the proof to my parents. The texts, the financial documents, the video recording of Jake and Sophie admitting to everything. I got a single reply from my mom later that afternoon. I don't even recognize my own son anymore. Thank you for telling us, Mark. We're so sorry. By evening, Jake was officially disowned. He tried calling me. I didn't answer. He tried calling Mom and Dad. They didn't answer either. The final blow. The divorce was swift and brutal. The court sided with me, since I could prove financial deception. Sophie walked away with nothing. The house, mine. The savings, mine. The car, mine. Sophie begged me to reconsider. Mark, I have nowhere to go, she cried. I just stared at her. That's not my problem. Jake, of course, had his own issues. His ex, the mother of his child, sued him for full custody after learning he had been funneling money behind her back instead of being a real father. He lost. Moving forward, it took time. But I rebuilt my life. I sold the house, moved to a new city, and for the first time in years, I felt free. One night, a message popped up on my phone. An unknown number. Mark, it's me. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I miss you. I wish I could take it all back. Please, if you ever want to talk. I blocked the number. I wasn't looking back. Because for the first time in years, I was finally moving forward. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking Reddit cheating stories happening around you.